Hello, it's Vagabond here. In summer 2022 I spent a week being homeless in one of the most polluted cities in the world, Norilsk. Norilsk is a closed city in Krasnoyarsk region, Russia, located 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, almost 3000 kilometers northeast of Moscow. Norilsk is the second largest city inside the Arctic Circle with a population of 180,000. Norilsk is located atop some of the largest nickel deposits on Earth, so mining and smelting industries are crucial there. The mining company Norilsk Nickel, the principal employer in the Norilsk area, produces 35% of the world's palladium, 25% of its platinum, 20% of its nickel, 20% of its rhodium, and 10% of its cobalt. The smelting of the nickel ore is directly responsible for severe pollution, which generally takes the form of acid rain and smog. Heavy metal pollution near Norilsk is so severe that it has now become economically feasible to mine surface soil, as the soil has acquired such high concentrations of platinum and palladium. Because of its strategic importance for nickel ore processing, Norilsk is a closed city and special permission is needed for foreign travelers, which is generally only granted for guided tours. Being a young citizen of Russia, I was able to buy a cheap ticket on the direct flight to Norilsk from Novosibirsk. It cost me $40. I was not obliged to get the aforementioned permission or a guide, so the police officers in Norilsk airport just checked my internal passport and left me alone. Alright, it's Vagabond here. We are in Norilsk airport. I got here by a direct flight from Novosibirsk. I'm going to spend a week in this wonderful Arctic city, one of the biggest cities in Arctic. The plan is to explore the city itself and its surrounds, its outskirts and some nearby settlements. So as you can see, I'm wearing t-shirts because the temperature here is quite reasonable at the moment. It's plus 16 Celsius. That means that we have caught that short Arctic summer that usually lasts for a couple of months at maximum. Actually, interesting places are even here in the airport. Look at that. This is the dead end of the branch track that formerly in Soviet Union and in the 90s of modern Russia was used to deliver passengers here. Well, basically this track was electrified and it was used by electric trains that ran from Norilsk and Dudinka straight here to airport. So that was a really convenient way of transportation, especially in winter, but sadly due to economic recession it was closed entirely. But now you see it's de-electrified, the rails are entirely rusty. The thing was that this currently isolated railway network was supposed to be connected with the railway network of USSR via the construction of Trans-Arctic, or also known as Transpolar Railway. Norilsk Railway was about to be connected with Novorengoy, Salihard, Lebednangi, and following this route it was possible to reach Moscow, for example. We are now in the first settlement that potential passengers of airplanes who took flights here to Norilsk were able to observe from the motor road which is there going to the city. So this is the abandoned settlement of Alykel. But this is not just abandoned, this is actually disappeared settlement, because as we can see there is no buildings. Just lately, I guess, local authorities decide to clean this abandoned settlement from abandoned constructions. They destroyed, they demolished all of them, and they also cleared the trash that remained after that destruction. So currently this area is being recultivated, and I guess they either plan to construct something here instead of this abandoned settlement, or they just decided to somehow create a better appearance of Norilsk, because for me personally it was always associated with various abandoned sites, abandoned sceneries, but now things can be different. Look at the massive wooden fences near the road, and its main function is to protect this road from snow drifts, because you see this is tundra, this is entirely open space, and if wind blows this way the road can easily be blown by the snow. we can still find these kind of constructions that were originally placed here with the foundation of the city. Another significant aspect of this area is that formerly here used to be the border between Krasnoyarsk region and Taimyr autonomous region, which is now a part of Krasnoyarsk region. While hitchhiking towards Norilsk, I accidentally encountered this incredible monument to a steam locomotive class GR. It was produced in 1950 and it never worked here in Norilsk. But what is important here is that initially this railway was narrow gauge, 750 millimeters, and only some years later it was reconstructed to this broad gauge that currently runs parallel to this motor road. Perhaps some steam locomotives of this series also operated here in Norilsk, but this one is not original, it's not from here. This steam locomotive was sent here from Ukraine, from one of the narrow gauge railways in Ukraine. And in addition to this locomotive, here is a short stretch of narrow gauge tracks and this wonderful bridge over Ambarna River. I have made it to Kayerkan, the district of Norilsk that used to be an independent settlement until 2004. In 2004 it became a part of Norilsk. It is located in 20 kilometers from the city center of Norilsk. And here is a railway station. It's definitely its main attraction. I have never seen containers transferred in dump cars, but that's the reality of Norilsk Railway. Due to the fact that I didn't have breakfast today, it's high time to have at least a lunch. So I managed to find a local cafeteria here in Kayerkan. I ordered basically rice, chicken cutlet and a cup of compote. So it all costed me almost 300 rubles, definitely an average price for this area. It is mostly built up with these, at first glance, typical 9 and 10 stories residential buildings, but if we get closer we can clearly understand that they are different. Firstly, let's look at the level of the entrance hall. 2 meters above the ground level, because in winter the level of snow coverage can also reach 2 and even 2.5 meters. That's why they are so high. And in addition, and all of these houses are stilt houses, because there must be a space between the bottom floor, look at that, it's quite high from here, and the ground, because all of this area is covered by permafrost, and therefore if there were no this coverage and no these stilts, the ground will basically turn into swamp. A noticeable feature in the appearance of residential buildings is these massive figures marked on the walls. They are marked this way to make it possible to somehow recognize the number of a house during polar night, when it's completely dark, when there is a winter storm, snowstorm and stuff, then it's barely visible. Well, there is not that much graffitis in Norilsk, but there is a lot of street signs when people basically say that they love somebody, like this one. This green stuff is sewer hatches here in Kayerkan. Look, there is a direct way underground, and somewhere here, right under the layer of asphalt, are underground communication like pipes, tubes and stuff. It's 3 p.m. at the moment and the streets are almost entirely deserted. I only encounter some random teenagers walking around or some elderly people. There is no working class, because working class is at the factory right now. We have a golden opportunity to check the stilts themselves without any protection. Each one is at least 2 meters high. They create the space between the first floor, which is kind of warm, and between the ground that must stay cold, because there is a permafrost, and in case of it melting it will create a swamp, and basically all of these houses will just go down into the ground.
Kayerkan is translated from the Dolgan language as a small hill. Kayerkan had the status of a city from 1982 to 2004. The construction of Kayerkan was connected with the discovery of coal deposits and their subsequent development. From 1943 to 1956, Prisoners from the Norilsk worked in Kayerkan. After the liquidation of the Norilsk, the Nornickel facilities were serviced by civilian workers. The further development of the settlement was associated with the construction of the Nadezhda steel works, one of the largest enterprises of the Nornickel.
It's like a square, but it's unfinished definitely, because there is still some construction site. There is a playground for children, ice box, and this is the ice palace. There are people play hockey, for example. Ice Palace seems to be really the most meaningful attraction here in Kayerkan. I badly feel the lack of trees here because air is so dry. It tastes like the air in industrial zone, you know what I'm saying? There is lack of oxygen or something. It's a bit not just dry, it's sharp to breathe. Frankly speaking, I didn't even expect to find some abandoned constructions here in Kayerkan. I thought that they were all recultivated as in the previous settlement. However, here it is, it's like a massive block of flats. It seems that it will be either destroyed, demolished, or completely reconstructed. Apartments here are already empty, almost entirely. Look at this floor, it's rotted. Just a view on Kayerkan. You see the house on the left, I guess this one is also semi-abandoned. Look what I found. This is the engine room of the elevator. It is located straight on the 9th floor between apartments. Imagine that someone could live here and observe their place of work. This is the steel mill between Kayerkan and Norilsk, one of the largest enterprises here in the area. The structure of the houses here creates sort of the square, so houses here are like walls that protect backyards from wind that is blowing from Tundra, especially in winter. In this town there is a pretty simple but useful park, because here is a BBQ lounge near every single kind of a shelter, and people actively use it. I have way more questions than answers. Well, this river doesn't seem to be huge. Was there a rainfall or something? Самое время оценить цены на продукты в Норильске. 36 рублей за пачечку вискаса. Пол-литра кока-колы стоит 105 рублей. Майонез провансаль 142. Шоколад, конечно же, тоже дороже идет, 104. Овсянка 258 рублей. Рис 900 граммов, опять-таки, это даже не килограмм. 215, 168, 198. В общем, в районе 200 рублей за килограмм. 118 рублей за консерву с сайрой. Главпродукт 273 рубля вот за такую баночку говядины. И нарезной хлеб 54. Так, ну это всякие чипсы, энергетики и тому подобное. Вот, кстати, можно взять по вполне себе приемлемой цене. Deep in the industrial zone of Norilsk, there is an interesting monument to the first airport in Norilsk, which is called Nadezhda. This word can be translated as hope. Well, this is a female name on the one hand, this is the word meaning the hope. It was constructed here in 1949, and first flights from Moscow and Krasnoyarsk were accepted straight here. But then the new airport, which is now the major airport of Norilsk, Alykel, was constructed in 1960s, and this airport was closed. And now on the background is a factory that is called the same, Nadezhda. It was named after this airport. This is one of the aircrafts that used to operate here in Norilsk. It's 10:30 p.m. in Norilsk. Quite a lot of people on the streets. The sun is still shining because polar day has just been changed by white nights, which means that here is no like entire night. It's only like a little bit dark for a couple of hours and then sun rises again. The second day of my Arctic adventures has begun in this weird spot. This is the very outskirts of Norilsk. This is the mount of a railway, the very edge of some plants. And here I am, just put my carry mat here, got in my sleeping bag and slept for something like 6-7 hours. So the plan for today is to continue exploring remote districts of Norilsk, then return to Norilsk and perhaps try to catch a freight train towards Yenisei River. This was my first sleeping spot in Norilsk, right near the motor road. I have just switched location and I'm currently in the district of Oganer. It's a part of Norilsk as well, and this is, guess what it is? This is the main hospital of Norilsk. It was constructed in 1994, and I believe that this is the biggest hospital behind Arctic Circle here in Russia. Oganer is located 7 kilometers from Norilsk, and the air here is much better. I can even smell this sort of freshness, you know, because most of emissions from the factory, they fly that way to that mountains, to that valley. Currently there is not that much abandoned places in Oganer, but in general the appearance of the settlement has become much better in recent years. The apartments are just bare walls, there is no furniture inside. Well, we can even get there to prove this fact. Look, just a lot of trash with zero peculiarities at this point. There is not that much places to go, so it's understandable why people prefer to spend their time at home, move to nature, somewhere to go fishing or something, go hunting. It seems to be windy here 24 hours, 7 days a week, and therefore they decided to create this sort of covered bus stop. So you open the door and find yourself in a comfortable, warm place, much better than waiting for a bus on the street. The next district of Norilsk that I'm going to explore, it is called Talnakh. Numerous blocks of flats in Norilsk and its surrounds are painted with bright colors. I guess that had some positive impact on people's mental state. So here are like a number of pipes, 5 pipes, and this is the information which pipe is responsible for example, sewage, cold water, hot water, heating. So I have just discovered that there is a mineral that is called Talnakh. It was named after Talnakh, this settlement, because it was opened in 1968. For the first time it was found here. This mineral consists of cuprum, ferrum, nickel and sulfur. I would characterize Talnakh as a small copy of Norilsk, because here is the same architecture, and also a part of Norilsk is visible from here. So the actual factory, which is now fuming extensively. So I'm again in Norilsk, and as you can see, I'm now in my pullover, in my jacket, and I also just worn the second pair of pants. The weather has changed drastically. It's getting colder and colder like each 30 minutes. I'm pretty close to the yard, so going to check it just now and we will see what will happen.
I went to Norilsk Railway station where I caught a freight train and made it to Dudinka. I showed it in a previously published video, which you can watch by clicking on the link in the upper right corner of the screen. Now, let's move straight to Dudinka.
So this is Dudinka marshalling yard. Basically, they prepare an intermodal train, consists of dump cars, to depart to Norilsk. Look what I found! This is the head wagon of an electric train class R2T. Trains in Norilsk is definitely another topic for discussion. Just look at this sort of gondola. It has 8 axes and it's extended in height. This is a railway crane. Also does not operate, class KTA 251. This is the head wagon of the electric train class SR3. The same one can be found as a monument in the Railway Museum near Norilsk Sortirochny main station. The wagon from the inside entirely burned out, so not a single detail has remained here. Of Dudinka seaport. It accepts icebreakers that run through sea. Dudinka is greeting us with lakes, railway tracks, industrial zones, abandoned places, and same architecture as in the rest places of Norilsk. I have found another head wagon of the electric train. This one is installed, literally installed into the building. Look at this wonderful compartment of a factory or something. The airplanes are everywhere here and the colors are so bright. Here we are in Dudinka seaport. I guess this crane is sort of the art object here, but the actual port is over there. This port is famous for the fact that this is the only port in the world that is constantly being flooded. I mean that it's being flooded every spring when the level of water in the river increases significantly due to the melting of snow and ice. Relatively well-developed area in Dudinka is its central square. There is the building of the local authorities on the background, and this kind of lighthouse, I'm not sure whether it is actual lighthouse or not. It is designed as a Big Ben Tower in London. There is a House of Culture, Timur National Museum, and another panoramic view on Dudinka seaport. Mr. Lenin is watching Dudinka. Underground communications are placed on ground and they split the street on 2 equal sides. This is a common thing for various cities of Russia to show the names of some prominent people of their regions. They also mentioned the explorers of Taimyr Peninsula, starting from 17th century, so first people who explored Siberia, and up to the ones who explored this region in 20th century. We are finishing the exploration of Dudinka, and by following this railway track we will get to the city exit and start hitchhiking towards Norilsk. And I'm planning to hike to the abandoned steam locomotive that I noticed yesterday while train hopping across this area. I have a golden opportunity to check this construction in close view. This is the protection wall that protects the railway track from snowdrifts in winter. I have discovered some abandoned mechanisms. Not sure what was their purpose. Perhaps they were supposed to pull something from there to here. The side track here is occupied by a long train, which mostly consists of tanks. They're quite age-old, look at that. It was produced in USSR in 1951. Can't stop thinking about that these are the ruins of some industry because of the galore of rusty metal. These wagons are so bad. Look, the actual tank is there. Then here is a layer of insulation and then another layer of metal. Most likely they will be cut on scrap metal. They're just waiting in a line for their destiny. For their destiny! Before going to steam locomotive, I would like to check this turn left. This is a side track of a reserve base where some wagons and locomotives are stored. Norilsk Railway cemetery has almost gone, sadly, or luckily. 5-6 years ago, when I was watching maps, I saw all of these tracks occupied by trains. Most likely they were just cut on scrap metal. Aside from wagons, there is a motor car, entirely rusty, entirely rooted. Let's try to get into the cab. Well, the cab is also empty. Up. There is not that much interesting stuff. It is also not the best place for overnight today. These are the wagons from electric trains that used to run here in Norilsk, and it's quite unclear for me why they are placed this way. Oh, this wagon was definitely occupied by homeless. They used to live here. Well, perhaps they still live here, although I don't see some fresh signs of their presence here. That is the end of the track. It's kind of surrealistic scenery. I have no idea why are they here in such position. So perhaps train engineers who pulled them here just wanted to have fun, therefore they tried to pull them as fast as possible to intentionally derail them. I don't have other explanation. I have drastically changed my plan to sleep in an abandoned dump car, because you see the train, it goes the direction that I need, and it stopped here for several minutes. So I will try to get into it, try to get closer to the place and hop off this train on the fly. Local time is 12:15 p.m. What a beauty! Yes, it's not a polar day, it's white night. While walking towards the spot, I have accidentally found a great place to sleep. This sort of the metal cabin was placed here to let workers stay here in warmth. There is a stove inside and a reserve of wood, so just in case it's possible to ignite fire. So it used to have a door which is now laying on the ground. This was kind of the space for some equipment. This is bench number 1, bench number 2, and the stove. It must be a luxury night today. Morning guys, it was a cold night. The temperature reached +7 Celsius, and due to constantly moving air here, it was not really warm even after hitting the stove. It got cold almost instantly after the fire had died down, and I woke up, I believe, 2 or 3 times this night because of cold. So now we are cooking the breakfast and walking further. It is 80 kilometers from Dudinka, so kilometrage is counted from there, not from Norilsk. I've just discovered that we are walking by the ruins of a railway station. It was called Nadezhda, that can be translated as unexpected. The goal of this hike, this is a boiler house based on the steam locomotive class 9P that was produced in Soviet Union between 1935 and 1950s. I have no idea how it actually worked, but if you understand something, here it is. That's the construction. That's surprisingly the battery, the heating battery. These are the ruins of the train station building. There was also some constructions, some residential buildings, perhaps some service constructions. They were also heated by these tubes that originated here near this steam locomotive. And that's pretty much it. So I didn't expect something to be preserved here. Everything is burned out. The view from the inside of the locomotive. There used to be a fireplace. There was a tender with coal. Changed the plans and ended up in Talnakh, again the northernmost district of Norilsk. The new plan is to hike to one of the natural attractions here, which is called Red Stones. There should be a waterfall or something. There are great views on Putorana Plateu on the outskirts of Talnakh. The place where I'm heading is also located there.
When I was walking to the waterfall, a man on a swamp-buggy stopped next to me and offered to give me a lift. It was a local resident of Norilsk who decided to spend his weekend in the surrounding mountains and forests. He invited me to go with him, to which I agreed.
Вон, видишь, ручеёк бежит.
Вообще ручеёк ведь.
А нормально это самое, тут такая вот,
Right in front of us should be the waterfall. However, it is almost dry because there have been no rains for a long time, and also in winter there was not that much snow.
Нормально, много места.
Аккуратненько. Все, отлично.
Направо надо. С правой стороны сейчас объедем все эти кучи.
It's new day in Norilsk. It's early morning and it's finally not windy and not super cold. Yesterday in the evening I had a tour around Plateau Putorana and we traveled for, I don't know, like 3-4 hours around Plateau Putorana. This was my first experience of riding this kind of buggy. It is called balatakhod in Russian, which means that this machine can easily cross swamps. However, in one place we stuck and were unable to continue our journey, so we had to return. And that person hosted me in his summer house. There were not that much facilities, that's why I'm currently cooking my breakfast. That's a cup of coffee. I decided to devote this day to exploration of the industrial area of Norilsk. There used to be the famous nickel plant, which is now closed, but aside from it there is also a lot of industrial attractions and some of them will be visited by me. Nickel plant has its own cemetery of trains. Some of them are derailed. They are all rusty and age-old. But not only freight, but also passenger wagons. I would like to pay your attention on this wagon. It was designed to transfer slag. There was a huge metal cap. Hot liquid slag is loaded here and then it's delivered to some slag heap. However, this cap is cut, therefore there is an empty space.
And now let's take a little walk around the territory of the nickel plant, closed in 2016. Norilsk Nickel was faced with the task of modifying the production chain and eliminating sources of the air pollution from the obsolete nickel plant. The nickel plant was launched in 1942 and worked 74 years. Every year the Norilsk nickel plant emitted about 370,000 tons of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. After the closure of the plant, the amount of sulfur dioxide emissions within Norilsk decreased by 30%.
If you're attentive enough, you can notice that air has a color here, such kind of a light blue color. And this is the gas and emissions that are flying from copper factory, which is located on the opposite side of the city. And due to the wind rows, it is blown here to southern industrial zone. It's impossible to breathe normally here. That's why I'm wearing balaclava right now. Otherwise I would start coughing immediately. I have never breathed such a toxic air in my life. Now we have to climb at least to the level of this wooden wall. I already crossed half of the way to this wall. It was better for a couple of minutes when gas stopped be blown here, but now it is blown by the wind again. The rock itself protects me a little bit, but I still feel this metal in the air. The air here is so toxic. Like now I feel pain every time I try to breathe. This is disgusting. This was the actual line of narrow gauge railway. It was located on this wooden overpass, which is now entirely destroyed. I have come up with the idea to try to walk this overpass, but just one place where it could be broken, that would be challenging to get down. I have finally reached one of the most peculiar places in Russian Arctic. This is the narrow gauge descent that was used for transferring coal from the mine located behind the mountain. The wagons rolled this way via this wooden overpass. Then they got to the transshipment point over there, and then those small wagons were gradually pulled down. They were pulled by the hoist. This is the original hoist. This narrow gauge railway and pretty much the whole mine, as well as the city of Norilsk, they were all built by Gulag prisoners. В данный момент мы стоим на отрезке горизонтального пути, по которому уголь доставлялся в это место с рудника. Он уцелел, вероятнее всего, потому что здесь укрепленная конструкция, в отличие от этой деревянной эстакады. Впрочем, там тоже находится рудоспуск. Возможно, что какую-то часть груза спускали не вагонетками, а по конвейеру, который уходил туда вниз. These wagons were used for transferring cargo here. Скакалейка тянется еще немного дальше рудоспуска. Там находятся терриконы и отвалы. This piece of track is almost gone. Just a couple of stone falls. Эта конструкция похожа на конвейер, по которому руда доставлялась в рудоспуск. Closer to the top of the mountain, the railway starts zigzagging, probably because of some landslides that occurred here. The scenery here is absolutely outstanding. I remember when I was a teenager, I saw a couple of photos from here, from this place. Back then I didn't know that it was in Norilsk. I just thought, wow, that would be cool to get here. And after years I ended up here. Sometimes dreams kinda come true, sometimes don't. Tell me the place where I can see such a thing, if not in Norilsk. Sadly I missed the moment when the whole Norilsk was visible from here. But at least now you can clearly understand why this is one of the most toxic cities in the world. This is the city itself. This is the lake, which is also toxic. The district of Talnakh. Yesterday I was riding a buggy around all of these mountains. This is the industrial zone, some fabrics, some factories. This is the nickel plant. In front of the mountain there is a memorial that is called Golgofa. This is the monument to the victims of political repressions. There are several monuments, and each monument was designed by certain country. Those people died here in Norilsk. For example, the most interesting monument here is in this form of rails and cross ties gradually transforming into crosses. It was constructed by Poland to the victims from Poland. These three crosses symbolize three countries of Baltic: Latvia, Estonia and Lithuania. There is a general kind of monument, a wall in form of the cross, and cross as elements of human bodies. A chapel, most likely constructed by Russians, and also a tiny monument funded by Japan. So some victims from Japan also used to be here in Norilsk. I didn't have a plan for this evening, that's why I decided to visit an intermediate station between Norilsk and Dudinka. So I'm currently at Tundra station. It's 20 kilometers to Dudinka, to the terminal station of this railway. And these are the sights of Tundra. What a beauty, isn't it? A lot of rusty metal, abandoned houses, wagons, all that we like. 99% this car was here from the very beginning of the operation of this railway, from 1950s. The condition of mobile electric station placed in railway wagons is also fairly not the best here in Tundra. That's pretty much destroyed. the wagons are derailed. There is a module of the train station. It is controlled remotely, either from Kayerkan or from Dudinka. There is a freight train towards Norilsk. It has a crew change here. There is a car that has just arrived, got new crew here. I spent the rest of the day quite productively. I went to the village in the middle of nowhere, was able to ride in front cab of this locomotive to Norilsk, and then I took one of the last buses here to this point. We are now between Norilsk and Talnakh, so I'm going to pitch my tent near the river, and perhaps tomorrow we will manage to swim there. Or at least brush up a little bit, because I'm so fucking dirty. I feel the smell, that disgusting smell of my socks, even in vertical position, like now. My socks suck. I have pitched my tent straight here near the river, and when I was pitching it, not a single mosquito disturbed me, but when I got into my tent, there was a dozen of mosquitoes already. How did they sneak there? I have no idea. So I guess they are waking up right now, so I'd better go sleep. So new adventures tomorrow. I'm back to Norilsk, and today I'm going to walk around the town and explore it a little bit deeper. Right behind me is the Children's Hospital of Norilsk. The air here is insanely toxic. That's why I guess a lot of children come here with some issues with lungs, and it's really sad. Some of the blocks of flats near the university have been reconstructed, and their design is so attractive, let me say. There is a great combination of gray, white and blue color, and also this recognizable mark of Norilsk massive number of house, which is on the contrast with white, visible from everywhere. Newly constructed blocks neighbor newly built sport complex. I would characterize the territory of this sport complex as the most developed in Norilsk. There is sort of the square with a couple of monuments and sways. That's pretty much it. So the infrastructure is quite poor, but it's still used by people. A lot of people from Northern Caucasus and other Muslim regions of Russia work in Norilsk on a rotational basis. Therefore, there is a massive mosque. In the beginning of Leninsky Avenue, 5-story Stalinkas are painted with these yellow and red colors. Their combination is really dope at this point. The very downtown of Norilsk, this is Gvardeyskaya Square, the monument to the founders of the city, and the building of the headquarters of Nornickel. Everything is pretty great condition. There are some restoration works at the moment. It creates sort of the circle around this roundabout. I've just come to the Norilsk Museum. It shows pretty much everything about this area, starting from the models of animals, birds and stuff, and up to various utilities that were used by indigenous people, costumes, clothes. This part of the exhibition is devoted to the construction of the first railway from Dudinka river port to Norilsk. It was narrow gauge railway, and these were the conditions when people were working. Just look at that. This massive snowdrift is it's like 3 times higher than the height of a person. This is what happens there in winter. Massive snowdrifts that can easily cover the locomotive. This is the first train station in Norilsk. This is the imitation of a house where the explorers of Arctic territories lived and worked. This is that coal narrow gauge that I explored yesterday. This photo was taken right after its construction in 1943. Some blocks of flats in Norilsk have Soviet mosaics. For example, this one is devoted to the industrial workers of Norilsk. Another epic mosaic depicts astronauts and also kind of the chemical elements, nickel, cuprum and something else. Look at this monstrous sewage. All of these pipes go to copper factory in front of us, the one which is now fuming. And this is insane. You know, when you don't see these pipes, you don't even think about how it works, like how to maintain them. Like you have to know exactly which pipe is responsible for what. Like this is the water, this is the heating or something. The last point that I wanted to explore in Norilsk was Norilsk Railway station, because this is the biggest railway yard in the surrounds. It departs trains to various destinations. Somebody tried to take a taxi to the station, but seems that he didn't manage to do so. There is a couple of locomotives class 116. Look at this so-called snowplow. It was installed here in Norilsk. This one is not a regional. Having this kind of thing here, they can both ride a train and clean the tracks. Here is the actual engine. Well, the cap is not entirely empty, but quite a lot of wires are already cut. I spent this night on the hill near the river Ambarna. There is the monument to the steam locomotive that I showed you in the beginning of the video. August in Tundra is the season of berries. Let's see how much blueberries I will be able to bring in 15 minutes. This is how much berries I got in 6 minutes. You won't be hungry in Tundra because berries are literally everywhere here. They are the source of protein. It's legal to sell them. This is also sort of the side business for some locals. We are currently in the industrial zone of Nadezhda steel mill. It is fuming right behind me. My way to the derailed wagons goes through the disassembled railway station. We can see the remains of cross ties in the ground and also the remains of signals that are entirely rusty. Oh shit, this one is heavy. I have walked just 300 meters and discovered another series of abandoned dump cars. There must be 2 more. Yeah, I already see a couple of them. The 6th derailed dump car. You see, there is no wheel pair at its rear. And if you look on the other side of the truck, here it is. But look, it has 2 axes. There are 3 of them. So does it mean that there was another wagon derailed at the same spot? It seems that derailment is quite a frequent case here. Not sure when it was the last time, but I wonder how many days or months or maybe even years of my life this trip to Norilsk costed me. Because you clearly see that this is the factory, there is the factory, and also there is a factory in another spot, and they all fuming toxic emissions. That is insane. That is extremely hazardous for humans' health. And okay, I'm leaving this place tomorrow, but some people live here, some of them work in these industries. I have no idea how they can survive here, at least until 30. I would never live in such a place. It's so interesting, it's so peculiar, but it's not for living at all. I took the last bus to Norilsk airport. It arrived here at 6 p.m. This airport works only 12 hours out of 24 from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Therefore, I will be unable to sleep there. So the last night will be spent in the tent, somewhere close to the airport. I totally spent a week in Norilsk, and despite the fact that it was kind of the first acquaintance with the city, I still visited a lot of places. I'm quite satisfied with it. Norilsk appeared to be a super interesting area. Its massive factories, various industrial zones, they look so surreal. When I just came to Norilsk, there was windy weather and therefore there were no mosquitoes, but now it's like there is no wind at all, but there are mosquitoes. Approximately 30 flies and mosquitoes got into the tent, so I have to kill at least half of them. Otherwise they will not let me sleep.